College football experts are finally buying the Sawyer Robertson stock, but they've still got the kid all wrong. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas, with significantly less hair than yesterday, but at least this time it was my own choice and not what usually happens with my hair loss. Happy to be talking to you guys on this Thursday. We got a big show for you. We're talking about those college football experts, namely Josh Pate, who's buying into the Sawyer Robertson stuff, but he's still missing this one part. I think there's still one part he got wrong here. Plus, Saturday afternoon, we've got the Bears in West Virginia at the Foster Pavilion. It doesn't seem like a big game on paper. I am here to tell you it is a massive game for both teams, neither of which are really competing for championships, but Baylor women's basketball is. Can they get this thing done? Are they going to shock some people down the stretch here in the Big 12 schedule? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Starting with our pal Sawyer Robertson. Look, I banged the drum about it. I know Baylor fans have been talking about it from the time he started ascending in this 2024 season up till now. Wondering, what is the deal? Why are people not understanding what Sawyer Robertson was doing and did in 2024? It really started for me when we got to all conference honors, because going into that was, the week after the final regular season game, I'm thinking there's no way Sawyer Robertson is not going to be all Big 12. I just wrote it off. He had earned that. And then it went to Sam Leavitt. And I was like, really? Because Sawyer Robertson had a better year than Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt's team did better, but Sawyer Robertson had a better year. And since then, it has just been this mountain of disrespect against our man Sawyer Robertson. Until yesterday, Josh Pate, one of the foremost voices of all of college football, you all know who I'm talking about, was on his show and talking about breakout quarterback candidates for 2025. And, you had the Arch Mannings of the world, being Arch Manning in a different category, Dante Moore from UCLA to Oregon getting to start this year, Julian Sayin filling in for the national champions, one of the prized quarterback recruits of the last few years. And then he talks about Sawyer Robertson. Well, at first he says Sawyer Robinson, but I think a lot of people have that at first. And then talks about how much he likes Sawyer going into 2025. Now, I'm not putting the clip in here only because I don't want it to get struck down for copyright and us to lose money on this video, on this YouTube episode, as well as wherever you get your podcast, by the way. But he couldn't say anything but glowing things about Sawyer Robertson. We talked about Baylor going into 25, how the defense still isn't going to be good. I pushed back on that a little bit, but that's fine. Saying that it's the second year in the system, Jake Spavital, all that good stuff. So he lists finally someone at the national level and a really respected college football voice in Josh Pate, someone who is right at the top of that college football media game. I mean, you want your next generation's Paul Feinbaum in a good way. This is it. He's it. And he's giving the utmost respect to Sawyer Robertson. So it's finally, Baylor fans, rejoice. We've got someone on our side who actually doesn't even need to be a biased thing to be on our side. He gets it. He sees that this is a good quarterback, because I'm starting to think that Sawyer Robertson was just shadow banned for months. But still, Josh Pate got it wrong about Sawyer Robertson. Critically, Josh Pate got it wrong about Sawyer Robertson. He is not a breakout candidate in college football for 2025. He already broke out. If you're not on the Sawyer Robertson train, you're not knowing ball. You're missing this. And so I get it. He hasn't had the coverage that some of these other quarterbacks have had. But Julian Sayin has not taken a snap. Dante Moore's never been the starter. Those guys, and it's essentially what he says about Arch Manning in a way. He thinks Arch is going to be really good, but Arch already got some playing time in 2024 and all that. So Dante Moore, or Julian Sayin, guys that can break out in 2025, sure. But you're talking about a guy who started for 10 games this past year? Got him from 2-4 to a bowl game and at one point 6 straight wins. We're talking about a guy who takes over the starting job, and for a 13-month span for Baylor football, they've got a 5-13 record. They didn't win a conference home game for a year, a full 2 years, whatever it was. Sawyer Robertson takes it over. It was 2 years, by the way. He takes it over and instantly makes Baylor credible again down the stretch of the season. 28 touchdowns to 8 picks in 10 games. I mean, the guy just stepped on the field and threw 3 touchdowns. Like, just threw the uniform on and threw 3 touchdowns. He elevated everyone around him. And that's not even just the receivers. Elevated the run game. Oh, and by the way, he can run it a little bit too. A couple touchdown runs of over 50 yards this year. The kid can do it all. Picked up Baylor by its bootstraps. Saved his head coach's job. A guy who's a former conference coach of the year in this conference, a guy who's won the Big 12 title, a guy who's won a New Year's Six bowl game, has won a national championship as a defensive coordinator. Sawyer Robertson saved his job in 2024. The kid already done broke out. Breaking out like acne in 2024. But I get it. Not enough people are talking about Sawyer Robertson. Am I a hero because I've talked about Sawyer Robertson this whole time? I'll let you decide that. But he's not a breakout candidate for 2025. He's a Heisman candidate for 2025. And if you want to say that's a long shot, sure. Of course it is. Anyone that's not playing at whatever, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, whatever, you don't think about the guys who aren't playing there at the top of your Heisman preseason list. Some people didn't even really know what to expect from Travis Hunter. I think it turned out pretty well. I don't think many had Ashton Genty on the Heisman shortlist to start the year, and yet he had an excellent career going into that game or season. So you want to say that he's ambitious long shot to get the Heisman Trophy? I don't think it's as far off as people think. I really don't, because what the Heisman has proven to us is you don't need to go to the national championship game. You don't need to go to the college football playoff. Travis Hunter just won it. He didn't go. You can play in the Big 12. You probably need to be a quarterback. I think we see that more often than not. Last year notwithstanding, we see mostly quarterbacks. You got to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country, and have to have a pretty good team. Of all the quarterbacks returning this year, no one's got a higher quarterback rating than Sawyer Robertson. That's not a breakout guy. That's a guy that's here. And if you want to talk about the dependability he showed you in those final 10 games, to me, it was better than Drew Aller. It was better than Sam Levitt. It was better than DJ Lagway, albeit a guy who also had a bad team going into that run. But so did Sawyer Robertson. No one elevated their team the way Sawyer Robertson did last year at the quarterback position. Like, took them from suck to really good. So, look, I love the love from Josh Pate. Love it. We need more of that to get the Sawyer Robertson agenda going. As big as Locked On Baylor is, I'll need some help from guys like Josh Pate to really push that agenda. And I'm happy that the name is in the mouths of some of the leading college football analysts in this country. But he's not a breakout candidate. Like, he's already been using Neutrogena, man. Like, he broke out. And he's here to stay. God, I can't wait. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Should he even be considered a breakout candidate? Is he a breakout candidate? Is he going to prove the nation wrong? Tell me why he is going to prove the nation wrong about why they were doubting him. Let me know in the comments below. Then like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We're going to talk about this big-time basketball game this weekend and why Baylor needs the energy for it to be a big-time basketball game in the arena. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. Bang. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I know you know. I know you know. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because honestly, it just makes everything enthralling in a game. You watch the NBA, there's some high-level talent, but there's a lot of teams tanking. There's some games that you're like, why would this be interesting? FanDuel makes it interesting. Trust me. And you get quick, easy payouts. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Bears, West Virginia Mountaineers at the Foster Pavilion on Saturday. Another Saturday afternoon. Can I just say how much I like the Saturday afternoon games? Like, we get stuff to do at night. I know we've got that Houston one in a couple weeks. It's going to be 9 p.m. on a Saturday. Like, who wants that? I hate to bitch about this, but who wants that? Come on. It's in Texas. We're not playing in California, man. Anyway, I love it because we got USA Canada 4 Nations that night, so I can get my Baylor angst out of the way in the afternoon and have the rest of my day. I love it. Back-to-back Saturdays that we get to do that. It's Baylor and it's West Virginia. It's a game that used to be big time for us. I'm thinking back to 8 to 10 years ago. Obviously, with Huggy Bear having pressed Virginia. And they were always very good. They gave Baylor fits. Baylor had some good teams in those years. And Baylor was never like a top 5 team in that time for the most part. But those seemed to always be like ranked matchups, and they were big time. I say for the most part because they were #1 for in 2017 for 1 week, because the day they got voted #1, Monday afternoon, they got blown out by West Virginia Monday night up in Morgantown by 20 points. I call it the Oasis, some might say, because the Oasis' first #1 hit, just like Baylor's first time #1 in the nation, was some might say. And it was only #1 for 1 week, just like Baylor, their first time being #1. Anyway, you guys didn't need that. This is a new West Virginia, though. This is not press Virginia. Huggy Bears out the door. Darian DeVries, I thought, was an excellent hire coming into this, and I think they're showing it so far. I mean, West Virginia was a hapless team last year. I know they beat Kansas, right? And they beat Kansas again this year. So they were dead as a doornail last year, and here they are battling for the tournament, just like Baylor is. You went from a team, in Baylor last year that was competing for the Big 12 championship, West Virginia battling to just have some respectability as a Power 4 program, and now they're both battling for the same thing this year, and that is to stay in the picture when it comes to March Madness. Both of them have been living on the 8-9 line the last couple of weeks, according to Lenardi's bracketology, and they're both looking at these games as playoff games. So remember what I said last week about UCF, another team that's battling to get into the tournament, but West Virginia's in the picture right now. I said about UCF, the most dangerous thing about them is they're desperate. They got to start winning some games. And a win at Baylor goes a long way. Any Big 12 road win, honestly, goes a long way. But Baylor gets kind of the name brand recognition, whether you like it or not, they do. And that could help them getting into the tournament, but it also helps motivate teams playing against them. And that is the classic example of what you have on Saturday. You have 2 teams that need to scratch and claw. They know they're not the most talented. They know, in Baylor's case, the season hasn't gone the way they wanted to so far. And these are premium wins. At this point in the season, if you're 21-4, a home game against West Virginia isn't a premium game. But now it is at 15-9 and 7-6 in the conference. I found this very interesting. I'm on this website today. It's called Team Rankings. and they lay it out for these college basketball teams and, their projections to make this seed or how far they'll go. And one of the things they've got is a magic number. And what that means is if you hit this number of wins, you're going to be in the tournament. You can probably go one and done in the Big 12 tournament and still get in. West Virginia, their magic number is 19. Okay. They're at 15 wins right now, just the same as Baylor. Baylor's 15-9, West Virginia's 15-10. West Virginia then needs to win 4 of their next 7 in order to get into the tournament, to comfortably get into the tournament. Baylor, basically in the same boat. 19-20. That's the number of wins they need to have in order to not have to win a game in Kansas City, which Baylor very often does not do. They don't win games there. So you're looking at this for West Virginia and a good coach like Darian DeVries, and he's saying, guys, got to win 4 out of 7, and most people will be checking this off as a loss, playing Baylor on the road. But I've seen the coaches do this, right? I've watched the tape. We can get after these guys. There's no reason we can't go and beat these guys. And this is seen as like a big time opportunity for West Virginia. I know they beat Kansas, but typically you look at these top teams, Houston, Tech, Iowa State. They're not going to win those games. Arizona, they lost handily. They're not going to win those games. But they look at these like they did the other night against BYU. BYU game at home that they narrowly lost, and they're like, we have to pounce on this opportunity. So again, like I said about UCF last week, maybe the most dangerous thing about them is the fact that they're desperate. That and Javon Small, who was a guy I really wanted Baylor to go and get out of the transfer portal, and is everything I wish Jaden Nunn was. West Virginia is circling this game. Make no mistake about it. They see this as a massive opportunity to get to where they want to get to, and that is the NCAA tournament. And they've got a good coach. They've got good players, unlike last year where they didn't have either of those things. And they're going to be playing with a playoff tournament type of intensity. I just hope Baylor gets the memo that it's the same thing for them. I'm not saying they're going to come out flat. Like, I don't know. But it's a position that Baylor's not been in. None of these players on the team have been in this situation at Baylor. It's a situation Scott Drew and the Bears have not been in since 2019 of, hey, we got to win this game. And like, we've got to win these if we want to get into the tournament, or at least, save us from a scenario where we have to go into Kansas City and win 2 games. I don't know that we could do that. So it's foreign territory. It's been a while for these guys, for Scott Drew and for some of these players. Now, I should mention, Team Rankings does have Baylor as a 92% chance to make the tournament. Good odds, which is kind of how we all feel, right? Feel it's going to take a lot to go wrong for them to not make the tournament, but their most likely seed is still an 8. So while it's 92% to make it, you're not that comfortable as an 8 seed as you're most likely. 4.6% chance to make the Final Four, by the way. Half of 1% chance to win the whole damn thing, in case you're keeping score at home. Of course, their most likely scenario in the NCAA tournament is losing in the first round. Hey, tough crowd. 24% chance to make it out of the first weekend for the first time since they won the national championship in 2021. But like I said last week, do not take this team for granted. They didn't against UCF, and I think this is going to be a good barometer of how this lineup can work, this small ball lineup. Like, UCF, don't play a lick of defense. It was going to work the last 35 minutes of that game. Baylor was more skilled than them. Houston, not comparable because Houston's that much better. But here you have a West Virginia team that stinks offensively, and they can't shoot threes, but they'll D the crap out of you, if that's a term. Houston, the number 1 defense in the Big 12. West Virginia, number 2. Okay, so while Houston is much better than you in all facets, West Virginia can get after you on that defensive side. So it's not press Virginia. It's not the full court 40 minutes of hell, but they'll lock you up. They will lock you up. So this is going to be a knockdown, drag out, slog, defensive struggle of a game. This is going to be a 63-54 ball game. Get ready for that on Saturday. So this is the ultimate test in my mind for Baylor of how comfortable we should be the rest of the season, because they're going to be down a key guy. They've got a team that's desperate for a win coming in here. They need to be desperate as well. Baylor does. And it's one that's going to bring the intensity, especially on the defensive end. If Baylor does not sack up in this game, I think there are serious concerns about that tournament spot. And we'll see. We'll keep a track of it and see if they lose or if they win, how much that fluctuates, that percentage, percentage to make the NCAA tournament. One team that's going to be in there on the women's side is Baylor. But can they win a championship before getting to the tournament? That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Oh, you didn't think I was not going to mention the Lady Bears upset over West Virginia the other night? You didn't think so, did you? I hope not. Love me some Lady Bears, man. Nikki Collins, Lady Bears, 10-point win over number 18, West Virginia. And all of a sudden, the team formerly known as the Lady Bears, making some noise in this conference, or at least people are starting to hear it, starting to listen a little bit. I was critical of this team just a few weeks ago because I had high expectations for them going into this season. Some ugly non-conference losses. They lose that second one in conference early on to TCU after that just dreadful game against Oklahoma State. Remember that back in January. And here they are, tied for atop the conference at 11-2 in the conference record. Of course, TCU is the tiebreaker. They've already beaten them this year. And sit at 21-5. 14-1 at home. They've won 5 in a row. I'm hoping we get some more fans into the Foster Pavilion for that one, or for their remaining games, more than they had against West Virginia. But here we go, man. They are absolutely in this thing. They travel to Tech this weekend, same time as the men's game. They travel to CU on Wednesday. Altitude, but Nettie going back. Yeah. Iowa State at home. Iowa State's been a big disappointment. Kansas State on the road. These last 2 games of the regular season schedule. Oh, boy. You want some high drama in this conference towards the end of the season. Oh. So after they play Iowa State on Saturday, February 22nd, the 45th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice, that Monday, they turn around, they go to Manhattan and play what is now number 14, Kansas State. And then March 2nd, they host the TCU Horned Frogs. We could have a winner-take-all game to win the regular season conference championship in that final game. But if both teams win out, it becomes if there will be an outright winner or a tie. And that could be great payback for 2014 in football. But man, what an ending to that season, this season that's going to be. What an ending to the regular season anyway, because it's not the end of their season. By the way, TCU does have West Virginia still to play. That's a home game for them on the 23rd. That's the only other ranked opponent they play before Baylor. So I had expectations going into this year that Baylor could and maybe should win the Big 12 regular season championship. It didn't look good there for a little bit. Now, all of a sudden, here they are. And if they hadn't played such a lackluster first half against TCU up in Fort Worth, they could be in the driver's seat because they made that a game. They were down, 20 or something? Made it a 5-point game. They were really in it in the last minute of the game. They know they could beat that team last year twice, but I think one of them was, that was a walk-on team the second time. They know they can beat that team. And you look up and down this roster and you're thinking, that looks like a team that should be winning the Big 12 championship. And now they get the shot to. So talk about building off that momentum from last year. I thought they were not doing it. But here come these Lady Bears, man. Vonleh, Matharu, Andrews has had a nice season. Sarah really had some struggles last year, but I think she's had a nice role for this team this year. Jada Walker, Dariana Little-Page Buggs, Bella Fauntleroy. Like this is a team that could mess around and win this conference and make a run in March again. And that's what we all thought going into this year. And we thought it was kind of a, hey, here we go, Nikki. You've got everyone you want here. You had to fire 2 coaches in the non-conference schedule. Some things behind the scenes there, not great things. And now it's like, put that behind you. We're off to the races. 5 wins in a row, just knocked off West Virginia. The women's college basketball world is going to be tuning into Baylor again. I'll tell you that much. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think this team can win this? How important is this men's game against West Virginia on Saturday? And what do you think? Sawyer Robertson, breakout star, already here. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. Still about 75 to 80% of you that are watching every day are not subscribed. Helps out the channel a ton. And we're the only ones bringing you exclusive Baylor sports content every day that's not part of the university, and some damn good content, if I had to say so myself. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been so great through what can be a lull in the content schedule for us college creators. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate those of you watching and listening every day. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk a little bit of football on tomorrow's Friday edition of Locked On Baylor.